Hey everybody, my name is Joe Gunther, and this is a presentation for my lacrosse coaching curriculum, attack specific, for my Capstone project through Adams State University in the online master's program for coaching. So to start, the first chapter of my curriculum is the introduction, where I just basically go over these five concepts right here, which are: what are the needs for the program, what is the purpose of this project, what is my interest in this project, why I chose this topic, and my coaching philosophy. So I'm going to go through each of these individually over the next 5 slides and explain how I did each of them throughout the curriculum and the actual paper. So the first thing I cover are: what are the needs for this program. I wanted to do a curriculum on lacrosse because lacrosse is a very up-and-coming sport with yearly increases in popularity. It's one of the fastest-growing sports in America at the previous time right now, and with this growth, more curriculums are necessary, especially for growth from a young age. So I really wanted to do this also because with the increase in popularity, you gotta have more coaches. So a lot of things I've seen when it comes to younger ages like youth and high school is a lot of coaches get hired on that have very minimum experience and knowledge with coaching. So this curriculum I wanted to create so coaches like that can look at it and really get a grasp of the fundamentals. So they're not just teaching kids how to just run back and forth with a stick in their hands. They can actually teach them concepts, even if they never played lacrosse before or coached lacrosse before. So that's really one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to create this curriculum, so I can share my knowledge with the up and coming generation as this sport keeps increasing in popularity. So the next section I cover is: what is the purpose of this project. Basically, I'm creating this project as a curriculum for coaches and athletes based on the attack position, just so it can cover all the aspects and the roles of the position of attack, and provide fundamental as well as advanced concepts throughout the curriculum. As I mentioned, a lot of newer coaches and players don't really know these concepts yet, as they're just getting into the sport. So this curriculum really dissects the roles of an attackman and all the physiological aspects and the tactical aspects around it. So that's the main purpose of this project and why it was created. Next, we have: what is my interest in this project. I'm very passionate about athletics in general, especially lacrosse. It has been a very, very big part of my life ever since I started back in 7th grade. So I've played lacrosse for a long time, high school level, club levels, and most recently NCAA Division II with Adams State University. I played there for 4 years, as well as I also coached for several years there as well for 3 years. So my passion for lacrosse just continues to grow. It's something that I've always been passionate about and I always will be passionate about. So this is really why I wanted to create this project, because it's my life. So I wanted to share my passion through this curriculum with the next generation and anybody who wants to read this and gain more knowledge for themselves. So next is why I chose this topic, and this relates to my interest in the topic as well. But lacrosse is a very unique sport and has a very unique history. So people look at baseball as America's pastime, but lacrosse originated up near the Great Lakes area of Michigan and dates back to the 1400s with Native American tribes. And the modernized game that we play today relates mostly to the Iroquois tribes and the way they played the game. The game has so many different names. It's mainly known as the Creator's Game to them, but it's also been called the Godaway, as well as the Medicine Game, as they used to play it to heal their spirit and their mind. For all those reasons, and it just allows me to respect the game because of its origins and how far it's come in the history. So, and then another aspect is there's not a lot of curriculums made specifically for lacrosse. So you got your big four sports of football, baseball, basketball, and hockey, and since those really dominate the limelight, people really haven't created curriculums based off research and all that for lacrosse. So I really wanted to put my knowledge together to create a curriculum so people have something to reference in all different aspects of what the attack position and the rules are. And I also picked it because it'd be challenging because there's not much research on it. So this project really is 80% my knowledge mixed with others' knowledge and all that. So it was really challenging to do, and that's really why I wanted to pick it, because I knew it was going to be challenging. The final section of my introduction is my coaching philosophy. I added this in because with a curriculum, this is basically me sharing my coaching knowledge with people. So I felt like I should put my coaching philosophy in there so people know what my purpose to coaching is and all my thoughts on coaching, as well as the background information on myself and why I coach and the purpose behind everything. So, I feel like if you're reading something, you should be able to know a little bit about who wrote it and their views of their teachings and all that, and see if they can agree with it, whether they disagree with it. But it's definitely important to me that people know where I come from with my coaching, because I've developed a philosophy over the last 3 years through my playing time, and I wanted to put that in here so people understood me as a coach throughout this curriculum. So the next chapter of my curriculum is the review of literature, chapter 2. This section really introduces the reader to the 5 concepts that I wanted to research and base my curriculum off of, which are strength, speed and agility, endurance, tactics, and then offensive IQ or knowledge. They're listed in this order because it's based on their importance to the position in my view. That's why I place them like that. That's why I go over them in that order. So this next section, I'm going to discuss how each of these are presented in the curriculum itself. So the first thing I want to talk about is strength. This is the first thing I did some research on. Lacrosse is a very, very physical sport. It relates to football and hockey in that aspect. You have to be big and strong. The higher levels you go. So I wanted to dive into the physiological aspect first of what muscles are used for in the attack position. What motions the muscle groups are used for, how training protocols for these muscle groups are, and then how training specific motions in relation to lacrosse is beneficial. So this section really dives into the research on the physiological aspects of it. A lot of it may not have to do specifically with lacrosse, but it definitely covers the movements that one would use as an attackman. So this section on strength really covers that. The next part is speed and agility. Strength, speed, and agility really go hand in hand, but the reason I really grouped speed and agility together is because as an attackman, these two concepts are not used separately. They are used together in unity, so I wanted to research them together in that aspect to really give the reader some information on why they must be used together and not separately. And a big part of that is with the dodging motion an attackman uses. This is your main motion as an attackman, and you cannot dodge with just speed or just agility. You have to have both. So this research section of the literature review really went into the definitions of speed and agility, training by mimicking the motions of an attackman through the concepts of speed and agility, and then how it can be developed separately from strength, but also using the strength to your advantage to build that force production out of your muscles with the speed and agility aspects together. After strength, speed, and agility comes endurance to me. This is the third physiological aspect in lacrosse. Now, lacrosse is known as the fastest game on 2 feet, and it's really a game full of sprints. So when people think about endurance, most people think of distance runners, cross country, and all that. But endurance in lacrosse relates to how many sprints you can do in a game without getting tired. Lacrosse is not a continuous running sport. As an attackman, it's very unique in the fact that the possession that you're moving could last 15 seconds or it could last 3 minutes, and then you could also have 15 seconds between possessions to rest, or you can have 3 minutes between possessions to rest. You just never know. It's a game of constant movement, and this aspect when it comes to endurance is really unique because the endurance is just how long you can last while continuing these sprints. So this section really dives into how endurance relates to a game of sprints, as well as it gives information on blood lactate levels in comparison to distant runners, with the development of lactic acid and all that in your muscle groups of how it differs from sprints to long distance and all that. It also goes into percentages of anaerobic and aerobic energy systems used during lacrosse. So your anaerobic energy systems are used for the sprint part of it, but your aerobic energy system is the long distance. So it's about a 70 to 30% ratio as an attackman is what the research really says, and I absolutely agree with this research and the findings of it, because it really varies on position of how much of your anaerobic energy system that you use and how much of your aerobic energy system that you use. So this section is really important in understanding the concept of the endurance, because it really just is a game of sprints, but you need to be constantly sprinting the entire game to really make an impact. So this next section is tactics, and this comes after the physiological aspects of the sport. I put this after the physiological aspects because you really need those aspects of the physiological part of it to perform these tactics correctly. This is where it really gets tricky though with research, because as mentioned, there really isn't much research on the actual tactics of the sport, of what works and what doesn't work. The main research I was able to get in this comes from coaches with 30 plus years of experience and players in the pro leagues just submitting videos online and articles and blogs of what their opinions are on what works and what doesn't. And there's a lot of opinions, there's a lot of unique aspects of the sport that you can develop. So I wanted to focus this section on the attackman's main role on the field, which to me is the fact that they're the creators of the offense. They're not goal scorers, as people would think an attackman's role would be in any sport. They're creators of the offense, and the tactics and strategies that I list below are the ones that I really wanted to focus on because they allow attackmen to create offense. So I'll go into this further in the product section on my presentation, but these 6 aspects are dodging techniques, formations, rotations, isolation opportunities from X, throwing fakes and deception, and then shooting techniques. These are considered some of the most important things through all people of what you need to learn as an attackman. So this research section comes from those people with experience through blogs, articles, videos, and all that. So this last section of my literature review is the offensive IQ. This is a unique part of it because even though there isn't any research basically on lacrosse, it's really hard to even research this because offensive IQ in lacrosse comes through experience. And this is really where you can get this information from the guys that have been playing 20 plus years and the coaches that have been coaching 30 plus years, because they have the experience, they know what offensive players need to know, and they can teach that. So this section really kind of focuses around 3 ideas that are kind of commonly addressed as part of offensive IQ, which is the understanding of strategy, the ability to observe and assess the situation, as well as the experience to know what action to take and when to take it. I'm going to go into this deeper in the next section of the product section of the offensive IQ in my actual curriculum, but the research on this is based on coaches' opinions, basically. This isn't full-on research backed. This is a lot of opinions on what offensive players need to know, and these are the 3 most common strategies and offensive IQ trademarks that people throw together for attackmen to know and learn. Chapter 3 is the product section. This relates straight to the literature review. As I mentioned, that was an introduction to the 5 sections I wanted to put in my actual curriculum, which is what the product section is all about. So I'm going to go into detail in the next 5 slides about what each section is going to be about in the curriculum and what it relates to, what it covers. And as a reminder, these sections are strength, speed and agility, endurance, tactics, and offensive IQ and knowledge. The first section of my curriculum is strength. Now I start off this section with defining what the purpose of strength is in relation to why you need it in lacrosse. As I mentioned, lacrosse is a very, very physical sport, which is essentially what the purpose of strength is, so you can hold your own and do advanced movements while getting past your defenders and pushing them over, getting past them and holding your own, being stable and all that. The next part of this section covers periodization, which periodization is formations of cycles. You have mesocycles, macrocycles, microcycles. Your macrocycle is basically the whole training program split up. I split mine up into preseason, competitive season and off season. And this whole section, with tests and evaluations, with the implementation of exercises, volumes, intensity, and recovery, all revolves around a strength program that I have created myself. I've researched it and all that, and I believe that my training program is something that can help beginner lacrosse players develop that strength. So the periodization I use is a linear method, which is the safest method for beginning lifters. It uses percentages based off of your 3 rep maxes, your 1 rep maxes, so you can can increase your strength through each cycle. So the implementation of my exercises through my strength program, I give a lot of lists of how to do the exercises, when you should do the exercises, all the exercises that you need to know for lacrosse, specifically the attackman. And then you can kind of pick and choose which cycles you want to put them in. I just give the recommendations in here because everybody's different when it comes to lifting. You got to be able to listen to your body and know what your strengths are as a player and what you need to do to increase your strength. And then section 1.5, after all that, I go over stretching and warm-ups because it's very important to know how to stretch and how to warm up. Not just before strength training, but before anything. Games, practice, all of that. So that section really goes over stretching techniques, warm-up techniques, when to use them, what's best to use each type of stretch for. After that is the physiological adaptation section of it. This just goes over what results you're basically looking to see to develop yourself as an attackman strength-wise. Section 2 is speed and agility. This section covers the purpose of speed and agility, as I explained earlier, how they need to be used in cohesion as an attackman. The tests and evaluations that I've used in this training protocol and aspect of this curriculum are absolutely lacrosse-based. It's very important when coming to speed and agility that you train your muscles in the movements of a lacrosse attackman. That way they get used to them and build the force production of the muscle based off of what you need in that aspect. So the implementation of the exercises, volumes, intensity, and recovery all revolves around speed training, agility training, and then plyometric training, which is going to be exercises using with medicine balls, sledgehammers, any kind of explosive movement that builds your core and the muscles that are used in the motions of an attackman. 2.4 is the physiological adaptations. Again, this just describes to you what results you're going to see and how you should be using them as an attackman. Section 3 is the endurance section of my curriculum. Again, I start this off by explaining the purpose of the endurance, as I mentioned earlier in this presentation. But I also go into detail about the energy systems and how they're used. So there's 3 energy systems that I explain in here. Your main ones, you got the ATP PCR system, which is your short burst, 0 to 10 second energy system. You got your glycolytic energy system, which is anywhere from 10 seconds to 2 minutes. That's basically what you're using for the most part as an attackman. But then you also got the oxidative system, which really is what builds up your endurance through the glycolytic system and the ATP PCR system. So this section goes into detail and explains how all the energy systems work, which is honestly a very important thing to learn as an athlete in any sport, because you have to understand how your body works and why you need to build these energy systems up and how you need to fuel them as well. 3.3 is the endurance training protocol. Now, for this protocol, I mainly use interval training. Interval training is a way that you can build up your endurance to constant sprints by sprinting, say, for example, you sprint to the 50-yard line and back, take a 15-second rest, and then do the exact same thing back and forth with different intervals of rest in between time. This builds your body up to getting used to the motions of an attackman, where you might have the possession of 30 seconds and then a 15-second rest, or you might have a possession of 2 minutes, then a 10-second rest. You might have a possession of 15 seconds and a 3-minute rest. So interval training is really important as an attackman, as it builds your body up to those game-type situations and gets it ready endurance-wise. So section 4 is the tactics section. This is the section that really combines the 3 physiological sections beforehand and gives you all the information you need to know about what you need to be doing strategy-wise as an attackman to be successful and make an impact on your team. So the first section of this section, 4.1, is the dodging techniques I wanted to talk about. And I list 3 in my curriculum because those are the 3 most important ones to me as an attackman, because these are the dodges that you can use in combination with the strength, agility, speed, and all of that to beat your defenders and create an impact. So you have the face dodge, the split dodge, and the roll dodge. I go into great detail on when you need to use them, why you need to use them, and the best ways to use them. The next section is throwing fakes. Throwing fakes as an attackman is not necessarily a fundamental aspect, but it's definitely a tool in your arsenal that you can use advanced-wise, as it can keep you the goalie guessing, it keeps the defenders guessing. So this goes into the same aspects of it, of when to use it, why to use it, and how to use it. Section 4.3 is developing your shooting technique. Now, I only go over one technique because it's the most important and fundamentally sound technique in shooting, which is shooting overhand. The reason this is the most fundamentally sound is because when you shoot overhand, you are shooting directly past your ear and seeing what you're shooting at. Shooting sidearm or underhand changes the angle of the shot, making it a little more advanced and a little harder to be accurate with in the beginning. So I wanted to just focus on the overhand shot for the developing players in this section, as this just goes into great detail on the form, your hand placement, when you should be releasing the ball, how your feet should be set. All the fundamental aspect sound part of this section is described in this curriculum. Section 4.4 goes into a little more advanced concept and understanding of your position as the X attackman. So this is the isolation from X section. The position of X is directly behind the goal. Lacrosse is unique in that aspect that you have a lot of space behind the goal to work, which makes this position of the attackman very, very unique and hard for players that are just beginning to understand why they're even back there, because you're behind the goal and you feel like you really can't make an impact. But the ex-attackman is really the quarterback of the offense, as they can see the entire field from back there and take isolation opportunities to dodge on their long stick defenders or the short stick defenders to really develop an offensive play. And this section really dives into how you can do that, why you should do that, where you should do that, all those aspects. Section 4.5 is the rotation and the formations. This also kind of dives into why you need to rotate, what formations are important for you to know. These are fundamentally and advanced concepts in this chapter, so I created it to allow up-and-coming players to really pick and choose what information they really want to develop in themselves. The last section of my curriculum covers offensive IQ. This really dives into these 3 aspects of understanding strategy, observing them and assessing situations, and then experience on knowing what action to take and when. This picture is very, very good on presenting the field vision that you need to have as an attackman. As I said, attackmen are creators of offense. They're not necessarily goal scorers, so they need to be able to see all options. This picture really points out, with the golden X's on it, what you should be seeing. So you have your defender here, but you should also be looking at the next player over, as well as where you can shoot on goal. As I always tell a lot of my players, you got 3 options every time you dodge. You can either shoot after you dodge, you can either pass the ball, or you can either pull it out and maintain possession so you can have another re-dodge after that. This is what this section is made for, so it can teach you what you need to learn experience-wise and keep an eye out for, so you can develop that offensive IQ in your time playing. The last chapter of my curriculum is the procedures section. This chapter basically wraps up how I created this project, who I worked with, my mentors, what their qualifications are, the professional development plan I put together through this project, the tests and assessments that I've used, as well as my personal experience putting together this project and how it really worked for me. So the first part of my procedures is how I went about doing this project, and I really used basically all the knowledge of my past experience with the sport, playing and coaching, to throw it all together into one thing to create this curriculum. I also threw together some of my strength training experience that I've developed over the past couple of years through classes, through my master's program, as well as just experience lifting and trying new things. the organization of this curriculum was really based off of how I wanted to present things through the importance they are to me and through other people. And then the research throughout this project was very, very tricky, to be honest. But I did go about just trying to find how it related to other sports, and then honestly just seeing how much I could find on the sport itself based on positions, and then I just went through and found people with experience and blogs, articles, videos that they could help me, get my ideas across and prove that these things actually do work. So who did I work with and what their experiences are? I credit a lot of my knowledge to the sport to two people. I have two mentors basically, and it's Keith Lindgren and Jason Levesque. Jason Levesque was my head coach my senior year of playing at Adams State University. He came in as a new coach. He was hired off of the staff of the Canadian national team, so the guy knew exactly what he was talking about. Really developed my game as an attackman. Gave me a lot of chances there. And then after my senior year, I decided I really wanted to get into coaching, and he took me under his wing, gave me a chance, and he really developed and taught me how to coach in general, not just specifically the attack, but just to coach. And then after he left, we had a new head coach, Keith Lindgren. He took me under his wing as far as when it comes to attack position. I learned so much from him, and a lot of my knowledge of this curriculum is based off of what he taught me. So I really owe these two a lot when it comes to my knowledge. They both have tremendous experience with playing and coaching, and I couldn't be more grateful that I got to work with them throughout my life to create this curriculum. So my professional development plan is basically laid out through the entire curriculum in the way it was laid out and why I laid it out that way. I laid it out the way it is so coaches and players can utilize it in certain aspects. Coaches can just utilize the strength training programs, the training tactics, the offensive concepts. They can look through the curriculum and decide, I want to learn this part of it so I can flip to that section. I don't have to read the entire thing and get just big chunk of knowledge that I have to keep referencing. I can just learn section by section how to develop my players. And the same goes for the players that can utilize it. They can just flip to, if they want to learn how to face dodge, or they just want to learn how to develop their overhand shot, they can just flip to those sections, get certain drills and tactics on how to develop that, so they don't have to read a whole paper just to develop one part of their lacrosse IQ. And then the whole thing could just increase both knowledge. So that's why I laid out the project the way it was and sectioned it out that way. The tests and assessments I used, this picture is taken straight from my paper. It is an example speed and agility test and an example strength test progression chart. Just what you can use. Basically, it's a pre and post test for the speed and agility, and then the progression tests are important for strength because it allows you to change the percentages of what you're lifting, because you're going to get stronger throughout these training programs. So the progression testing is very important, and that's definitely a chart that you can use in a training program. Finally, the last section of my paper and this presentation is the experience I had with this project. Ultimately, this was a very, very unique experience for me, just placing all my knowledge and experience right into the same paper. I've never actually done something like that before. When you're a player, you're a coach, you kind of blurt certain aspects out at a time, but you're never sitting down and just writing out what all your experiences at once. So it's very rare to do that, and this is the first time I've done that. So it was very, very tough to do and time consuming for sure. But at the end, it was very rewarding to be able to see how far I've come in my career as a lacrosse player and as a coach. So I'm very happy with the end result of this curriculum, and I hope that anybody that uses it can utilize it in a way to gain knowledge for themselves or their players. So thank you for listening to me, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation, as well as I hope you enjoy my curriculum.